People, what's up? Welcome to the Wednesday night Grumpy Sound Guy show. I am your host, J.R. Everhart, the Grumpster himself. This week we are going to we're going to try to do a short video after the last two long videos that we had. We're just going to try to get you in here at about 10 or 15 minutes. So I've had a whole bunch of people. Well, let me just put it this way. My inbox is a constant flow of people suggesting topics, people complaining about, gig stories, nightmares that they've had on the gig, asking a whole bunch of technical questions about, doing their band out and about and the things that they don't have answers to, So I am in no way going to be able to cover everybody's question today because it would be absolute insanity. And we'd be here for about 6 hours in this video. Instead, I'm going to hit a couple of the most requested topics, the most requested questions that I'm asked or statements that I hear from middle market cover bands, middle market cover band sound engineers, and guys that are handling this nightclub to county fair kind of market that we live in here. So I'll start off with a story. I had a guy contact me last week, a longtime friend of mine, plays in a bluegrass band, super cool dude, love him to death. He was talking about how efficient his sound engineer is about advancing shows and actually going to the venue and making sure that they have all the things that they need to do business whenever reasonable, because obviously when they're on the road, that's impossible to do. All you can do is make a phone call and ask 1,000 questions. And believe me, and that could be a whole nother, Grumpy Sound Guy episode, is the 1,000 questions you need to ask to try and sort through the stupidity that is on site, especially when it's on the other side of the country or it's halfway across the continent or something like that, and you just don't have the ability to go and check out the venue. Anyway, so my buddy is telling me about how a sound guy is doing such a bang-up job and really getting it done. It's so encouraging to hear that stuff. I know I come across super hard on everybody because I really kind of talk about the uncomfortable things that no one wants to talk about, the elephant in the room, per se. And usually if that makes you uncomfortable, there's probably an opportunity to learn there. I don't do it in any way to feel like I am above you or anything like that, or I'm Mr. Know-It-All. I've been accused of all that kind of stuff. JR, you really just think you know everything, don't you? No, I really don't. I'm a middle market guy, I've spent most of my life doing middle market stuff. I've dabbled a little bit in the pro touring scene. I didn't really care for the road that much. I didn't like being gone from my friends and family and pretty much living on the moon for months at a time when you're out on the road. I really wanted to stay local and connected to my family, my friends, and I've spent, the last 35 years building a very firm reputation in the Mid-Atlantic as kind of a go-to guy for, install stuff, consultation, system design, and, mobile audio and staging in the middle market, in churches under 1,000 people, usually under 500 people. Which is predominantly most of the churches in our country, believe it or not. So this guy is doing his job. He's preempting. The venue was close. He was going to advance the show. They were told that they didn't have to bring production because production was supplied. They asked about that several times, and they were reiterated, hey, we just did a fresh install in this venue. We have everything in place. You really shouldn't need anything besides just backline stuff and your instruments. So thank God, this sound guy is the kind of guy to go walk the venue. Now, this band is the type of band where they don't trust anybody. And I don't blame them because that's the way you got to be in this business. They carry their own production rig with them whether they use it or not. It's in the trailer. When they're on the road, that's the trailer they're pulling anyways. So if they ever get in a hairball situation, they can always unload their stuff and make it happen. But, this guy goes and checks out the venue, and come to find out, they did just do a new, fresh install, but it was an AV install, like 70-volt speakers in the ceiling, nothing that was ever intended to support a live band of any form or fashion. And when the guy got on site, the owner was kind of like, well, I didn't know that was the case. They called the installer, and the installer was like, yeah, no, this system was never designed to support a live band. It is to reinforce, video and in-house AV type stuff. So thankfully, the sound guy doing his due diligence saved them a really tough situation at the gig, because there's already a whole bunch of crazy stuff that goes on at every gig that is already stuff out of your control that you're going to have to deal with and try to digest and all that kind of stuff. That's challenging enough. But then when you roll in and everything you've been told over the phone is not true because you were talking to someone that didn't know what they were talking about, man, that adds a whole nother layer of stress to the situation, even if you got it in the truck and all that kind of stuff. It's a matter of, how you have your planned anticipation of the gig, because you kind of plan out how you're going to load in and the time frame you need to do things, when you're going to arrive because of that time frame. Obviously, if you're going to set up production, you're probably going to want to arrive 90 minutes sooner than you would if you didn't do production, because you got to set up production. So because this guy was doing his due diligence, he saved the band a whole bunch of trouble. So ask a lot of questions, man, when you're on the phone with these guys, or if the venue's close and you can go walk it. Even if with my busy schedule, if it's a local venue and I've never been to before, I'll either call somebody who was just there, who I know knows what they're talking about, and have them give me a critique of the venue and the staff and the systems in place. Or I will actually go to the venue, or if I got to call somebody, I'm asking a whole bunch of questions. I'm asking for, model numbers of speakers. I'm asking for every little detail that I can ask for. And even if they give me a little bit of grief on the other side, like, well, I don't have any to model. I'm not a sound guy. Okay, well, can you put me in contact with your installer? Can you put me in contact with someone who does know what they're talking about? Because this is very important. Because if we show up and don't have enough time to set up production and set the band up, then the show's going to start late. Then you're going to be breathing down my neck that there's people sitting in the venue and we're not ready to go yet, when we really could avoid all that by advancing the show correctly. So I know I've talked a lot about advancing shows on my channel and in my shorts, a lot about stage plots and input lists, because the other side of that conversation is get your stage plot right. Update your stage plot regularly. I just did a gig the other day with a band, gave me a stage plot. I come preset the stage, and it's an old stage plot. We had to do a whole bunch of different stuff. It's not the end of the world, but again, you have gig expectations in your head and a plan in your head as to how you're going to flow through the gig to make it nice and fluid. And then when somebody throws you a curveball, I mean, it's one thing if it's one extra mic or something, okay, no big deal. It's another thing when it's 12 inputs that are different, or 8 inputs that are different, because you got to change all your routing. Maybe you weren't going to use a downstage snake. I use all wireless mics across the front of the stage, downstage. So I don't want to run that downstage snake unless I absolutely have to. But then when you show up and all your guitars and bass and stuff is direct input downstage instead of mic'd and direct input upstage, now that changes how I got to route the stage. That adds stress to the situation. That can be challenging, to say the least, especially when you're up against a time frame, especially in corporate events. I've done so many corporate events where I loaded in a 5-star hotel one time. Got there what I thought was early, and they were having a teachers union convention. And, the guy comes to me and says, how long do you need set up? I said, 90 minutes. He goes, you got 20. And because of a lack of communication between the venue, the guy that was actually the point on-site contact, the band, the agent, and me, no one really knew what was going on. So then the guy that's organizing the event and keeping the event on schedule is the one that's calling the shots. And there's nothing, I can't make the equipment be set up in 20 minutes. The band ended up not playing their first set because 20 minutes later was an awards ceremony for the teachers union, because it was a banquet type thing. So we just kind of laid back and pulled the cables where we could pull cables quietly in the back. And when they were done with that, we had another 15 or 20 minutes before we took off. And then the band did one long, I think 90-minute or 2-hour set, and it was gangbusters. Everybody was super happy, so it turned out okay. But that's yet another example of just how stressful things can be when you're on the job, and how important it is to make sure you're asking 1,000 questions. Don't be intimidated by someone's resistance to answer your questions. You need answers to these questions, period. End of conversation. That's the bottom line. There's no other way around that. So, like I said, we've talked a lot about advancing and stage plots and input lists and all that kind of stuff. Go back through, previous videos, and you'll get more in-depth, stuff about that. So the other thing that I want to talk about, and this will probably be the only thing else, only other subject that we'll have time for today, is electricity. And electricity from a couple different standpoints. I get bands that constantly contact me and say, hey, I got to do an outdoor private event for somebody. They want to know how big of a generator that we need to do it with. In my world, I always say a 10,000 watt or 10 kW, kilowatt generator is a minimum. Now, I know Honda makes a 95 EU generator or something. It's about 10,000 watts. I mean, I always accept that. And that's just to do basic stage gear, no crazy lighting, and a basic single stack, front of house rig, and monitors around the stage. And you're pretty much tapped out on that generator at 10K. Recently had someone come to me, said they had a 6500. I'm like, that's not enough. I've been in those situations where you didn't have enough power, and you're flipping the circuits on the generator all through the gig. You're having just enormous amounts of issues trying to get through the gig. You have to understand that at 120 volts, 120 amp circuit represents 2,400 watts. So do the math. If you need 4 circuits, that's just right around, 9, 10K, so it is what it is. Don't be mad at me because that's what it is. Don't be mad at me because you can take your 4,000 watt generator and, it has a 130 amp out on it, and you can run the AC in your RV. And how can your band draw that much more power? Well, we do, man. We really do. All this new digital stuff is efficient power-wise, but it still requires really clean power, because digital stuff with processors, a lot of the direct input guitar processors, stuff like that, keyboards, when they start to brown out, they lose the screen. Then you can't see what you're doing on the processor. Sometimes it'll completely shut down, or it will do any number of wild and crazy things. So there's that. I always try to get an inverter, type generator, so the power is nice and clean. That way it doesn't fluctuate too much. This guy that had called me with the 6500, they ended up going with a second 6500. That's not the end of the world. I would probably be careful how I set that system up, because they're 2 different generators. Make sure they're both grounded, first of all. Second of all, I would probably run one generator on front of house, and then the other generator on stage gear and just a couple trees of lighting, and call it a day, and just make the best of it. And you probably would be just fine, with that situation. But, 10K guys, 10K is the magic number, for a minimum. When we are doing our big system and stuff, we carry a 28K gas generator, and it seems to do really well. It's given me about 90 amps of power, and we're using all 90 amps of that. That's a double stack rig. Speakers are flown, doing a full light rig, the whole 9. Movers take a lot of power because of the electronic motors in them. It's not the lights. It's like, well, but they're LED lights. Well, you're right. The mover lighting illumination part of it is LED, but it's still using electric motors in there to tan and tilt and all that stuff. And those things take up a lot of power, especially if you have 10 of them, I think I typically run 3 or 4 on 120 amp circuit at a time or something like that. I think the way I do the stage when I have all the movers out is I do 3 on a circuit on each side, and I have 4 on the stage, and there's usually a circuit on each side of the stage at that point. I do 4 circuits all the way around the stage when I have the mobile stage out and we're doing festival level stuff. So we have 4 clean circuits there. And then I put all the wash lights, usually upstage wash lights is on. They're all LED stationary lights. I can usually get 120 amp circuit with those. And then I made daisy chain the 8 pars that are downstage. Yeah, so upstage is 120 amp circuit. There's 12 LEDs, PARs on that. Downstage is 8. I usually run them off of one of the stage circuits because usually at the front of the stage, downstage, they're usually not drawing a lot of power from the band because it's just direct input stuff like little processors and stuff like that. And those lights and those processors is more than enough to, run all that. But nevertheless, so yeah. And then the other thing about power is carry around, and I don't have one right here with me. Hang on a second. Let me go grab something. Okay, I'm back. This is what I was looking for. This little item here will save you so much trouble when you're trying to check power. It's digital, so let me turn it on here. I don't know if you'll be able to see it in the camera or not. Oh yeah, there you go. You see the numbers. So the beautiful thing about this is a AC tester. So you plug this into a wall socket. It will light up green or red. If it's green, you're good to go. And then it's going to tell you how many volts you're actually getting out of that circuit. That is super, super handy. I keep these sometimes plugged into my distro just to make sure I have power and I can see how much current we have going on. That thing cost me like, I don't know, 15 bucks or something on Amazon. Clean Tools is the manufacturer of it. See if I'm probably looking at it backwards because of the way the camera works. But anyways, KLEIN, Clean Tools is the company that makes that. You can get these without the screen with just the lights on it for about 8 bucks. I'm kind of like for another $8 or $5 or something. I'd rather have the one with the with the LED screen on it so I can see voltage. And now we have the Air Force flying over our shop. Enjoy the lovely sounds of a C-5 aircraft carrier. That's not an aircraft carrier. What the hell am I trying to say? What would they call that? They call that a cargo plane? Yeah, I think that's, who knows? I'm out of my freaking mind here. And I'm way over time. So I told you this was going to be a short video, and it's kind of went a little long. So yeah, get yourself a electric tester. And I plug that in every outlet before I plug stuff up, unless it's a venue I work at regularly. I plug it into all my power distros before I plug anything up. If I'm in an outdoor event and they're like, oh, well, we got 4 circuits on the back wall here. If that thing doesn't light up green and give me at least 110 volts, I want to see 118 to 120 most of the time. Then I don't plug my stuff into it. If it blinks red or it comes on red and it's got an open ground or the neutral and hot or reversed or something, I'm not plugging into that either, The neutral and hot reverse, you could plug lighting into technically and be okay, but I just don't take any chances. And I show the person on site, the manager of the club or the promoter or whoever is doing the event. I'm like, look, dude, here it is. That's bad power. I can't plug into that. I'm not plugging, $100 grand worth of gear into your crappy power. So that little thing, man, is going to save you your rear end, and it has saved my rear end 1,000 times over. Buy it and use it. Love you guys. Please like and subscribe, follow, hit the bell, do all the things you're supposed to do. 87% of you aren't even, subscribed to the channel. You're just in here trolling and taking a bite of this information. I'm doing this for free, guys. It don't cost you anything. All you gotta do is hit that subscribe button to support the channel and support this content. Share this with people on your team. If you're a church tech guy, share it with your church tech team. These videos, there's a whole library of stuff. I think I'm coming up on a year of actually doing this official Grumpy Sound Guy stuff. But there is stuff that dates back all the way back into COVID when I first started this that you'll find helpful. We go step by step through some Wi-Fi mixing stuff. That's a popular video that people like. Dude, that's information that you'd have to pay a school, $40,000 to learn. I'm giving it to you for free. Just asking you to hit the subscribe button. Hit the subscribe button, dude. Is it really that hard? Look, I'll see you next time. Love y'all.